Get rid of the transcript. It's a lot, always off-putting when you get a transcript when you're talking. Well, first of all, thank you everyone for attending today. This is the final session of the week for an update on the Aegis Neurodiversity campaign. And also, I think just for your awareness, this is the first time we've ever held member online sessions that incorporates all our membership from across the union, which is great to see. And I know I appreciate giving up your time for this as well, because lunchtimes are valuable. I know how busy work is at the moment, so I really do appreciate you coming on board for this. What is an important update? Just for those that don't know me, I'm Brian McDade. I'm the Assistant General Secretary of Aegis, and I'm also the chair of our Diversity and Inclusion Working Group. So today I'm just going to give an update on where we are with the campaign, the background as to why we created it. Also, Steve, other Assistant General Secretary, is going to give you an update on what training we're proposing to do as well, internally for our union reps, but also for leaders in the employers that we represent, and then open up to you guys for any comments, questions, any feedback that you want to share with us. And then that should take us through the full hour. But anytime when I'm talking, and those that know me, I do talk a lot. If you want to have a question, please raise your hand and I'll try and stop and give you an opportunity to ask a question as well. So what I'll do first, I'm just going to share the presentation that some of you should have seen. We sent it out via email, and also it's on our website, and it just gives an overview of our campaign. So just bear with me. And Jonathan, you know what's going on here. I'm going through all of the various tabs that I've got open. Painful. There we go. Can we all see that? Perfect. Does that come off now?
Yeah, it's gone off again.
It's every session I've had has been an IT problem. So my clumsiness. Right, there we go. So an overview of the campaign, but just to go back a little bit, we recognised the union probably about 2 years ago now. Diversity and inclusion is such an important topic, and quite rightly, for all unions, but also for employees as well. And those of you would have seen, no doubt, in your own workplaces, the employer talking about how vital D&I is in the workplace. There's probably great posters around the head offices, great links on the intranet, you know, talking about D&I. But one thing we as a union always recognise is how real is that becoming alive on the ground level in all workplaces? Is D&I bread and butter of what everyone's doing within the organisation? And I think it's fair to say there's still a lot more work to do. And that's not just the employees, it's for unions as well. So we decided, even though we're as you know, we're a small union, we don't have the plethora of resource that unions like Unite, Unison, GMB have, but we felt it was crucial to set up a D&I working group. So the working group consists of reps from all over the union, from different employers, and we meet on a regular basis to talk about, okay, what do we as a union need to focus on? And for us to actually understand what we need to do, the first thing we did was send out a survey to all our members, and I'm sure most of you remember that, took part in it. And it was great that we got such a high response, and you know, the feedback that we got was valuable to help us focus on strategies and objectives for the union when it comes to diversity and inclusion. So there's a lot of themes that came out, but one that stood out was about neurodiversity, and you know, what support, what education, what awareness exists at that point within the workplace when it came to neurodiversity, in particular how our neurodivergent members and their colleagues feel across all the employers. I mean, we recognised there was a lot of work to do. So that's why we decided to create this campaign. So we launched it in March. And as you know, the primary aim is to create awareness, support, and tangible changes in the workplaces, and also focus on, a better understanding of what neurodiversity is in the workplace, what neurodiverse conditions exist, like autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, and do we have fair employment practices? Is the workplace accessible for neurodivergent individuals at the moment, or what work do we need to do with our employers to improve the working environment? So, key activities. So we split it up into timescales. So month 1 to 3, and then another 2 sections after that. So month 1 to 3 was about creating awareness of the campaign. So the first step was to promote it amongst our own reps, making sure everyone was on board to support and roll it out in their own local areas in the workplace. So what we're doing at the moment, we're creating what's called a toolkit that we're going to share with all our reps, with all our members, and hopefully that leaders in all the workplaces can use as well to help understand the rights of neurodivergent individuals, what support they can put in place, and just create more awareness about each condition as well, so people have a better understanding. But one key thing for me and for us as a union is to make a campaign real. We need to have personal stories. Actually, we've supported members over the years who have neurodivergent conditions, but as you know, any case that we support in an individual capacity is confidential. But it'd be great for members or any colleagues within the workplace who are neurodivergent to give us a story of what it's like for them in the workplace. That, as I said, that brings it to life and makes it real. So if you or anyone else wants to provide an even anonymous story, please contact us. It will help our campaign. It will put things on social media, on our website, and it will just promote it even wider. And then, like today, we want to host more webinars and workshops for members and employers to educate them on neurodiversity. So next month, we're looking to hold another webinar. This time, we're inviting guest speakers who are experts and specialists on neurodiversity and neurodiversity in the workplace. So again, we're going to open that up to all members across every single branch of the union. So what about the resource development? So develop a neurodiversity resource guide to provide information. So as I said, that's just a toolkit to give more awareness for our reps to have a guide to hand. So when they're talking to members with neurodivergent conditions, or when they're talking to leaders who need to support neurodivergent conditions, and also we can share it with the senior people in the employees as well. We do recognize, there is a lot of education going on in the workplace, but is that reaching all levels of each organization? And then we want our reps to be fully trained as well, fully equipped to understand that, because as most of you will know, our reps do this on a voluntary basis. So they take up a lot of their time supporting our members, which is valuable, but and they get full training, education and support. But the more information, the more experience and knowledge they have to help every aspect of the working environment, just brings more value to our members as well. So an overview, internal comms. So we're already doing that. We're putting stuff in our newsletter, sending out emails and other internal union communications. One thing, not just about this campaign, but one thing we like to understand as well, do you feel the way we communicate with you guys is sufficient? Is email the right way to do it? Because, we get stats back about the emails we send out, and to be honest, the hit rate is low, but I understand why, because when you get loads of emails, it's very difficult to keep on top of them. So is there any other way that we can communicate with you as members as well? And then we're going to share on a social media platform more educational videos. And as I said, we're going to bring expert speakers into the campaign as well. And then again, just to emphasize that union reps will be helping with the resources around this as well. So month 4 to 6 is the next stage of the campaign, which will be coming into soon. And that's all around influencing policy change and legislation. So first of all, we want to work internally, recognize, do we have sufficient policies and procedures that are reflective of supporting our neurodivergent individuals? What improvements are needed? That's when we, engage fully with our businesses. And then also, one of the crucial things that unions do, as you know, we support our priority is always to support our members internally, individually or collectively through pay negotiations or any other changes, terms and conditions, but also outside of the workplace, because we're affiliated with the TUC and also with the GFTU, we do have access to lobby government and other policy influential people. So what we want to do is actually put forward a legislation change that will help our neurodivergent members and their colleagues. We're in the early stages of that at the moment. We're looking to put that forward at the next TUC conference in Brighton in September. So once we've confirmed how that would look and what specifically it is, we will then share that with members as well. And then the touching there and the key activities, engagement with employers, it's been great. As soon as we launched this campaign and started talking to our employers, they were on board. They're already listening to us. And one of the key things around that was when we have our formal meetings with each employer, either monthly or quarterly, this D&I is on the agenda. It's always on the agenda, so we can talk about what's happening, listen to what employers are doing, share our knowledge and experience, come up with ideas together, and then have an action point in each meeting and make sure it's followed up at each meeting. And essentially, the employer is accountable for whatever they agree on. Also, at the start of the campaign, I spent a lot of time in April and May attending various conferences where we talked about our campaign, why we were doing it. And I have to say, the amount of support we've got from the TUC, the Irish TUC in particular, and the STUC, that's the Scottish TUC, has been fabulous. They've sort of gone, this is great. We've not got any other unions doing a campaign like this. And also other unions are on board and want to help with the campaign. And I think you'll agree, for a union the size of Aegis, to have that support, to have that engagement is valuable, not only just for this campaign, but for our union as a whole. So what we decided to do was create what's called a charter, and we'll share that with our members within the next couple of weeks. And it's a charter that outlines what our campaign is, what we're hoping to achieve, and who's supporting it. So we'll get employers to sign it, other unions, other external organizations that are specific to this topic, to get that support. So it makes it public and it makes it real. And then, so when we talk about policy changes, what we're looking at, so reasonable adjustments. So many of you may have had support with unions in the past, individually, or the reps yourself that are on this call. Reasonable adjustment is a common phrase that you hear every day within the workplace. So someone's got a long-term condition or they've got an illness that they need adjustments to help them in the workplace. This is what comes into practice. This is what comes into play. We play a big role making sure our members get reasonable adjustments. Now, that word reasonable is very ambiguous, but that's a whole separate topic when it comes to employment law. But what we want to do is understand, when it comes to policy, do employers have the right reasonable adjustments in place for people with neurodivergent conditions? At the moment, probably not. There's a lot more work to do. And I can give you one example, or maybe two examples, but one example that stands out for me is over the last couple, since I've been, doing this, supporting neurodivergent individuals, there's always an issue around behaviors. So for everyone, when it comes to performance management framework, as you know, regardless of where you work, over the last few years, behaviors has become a measurement when it comes to performance. Personally, I'm not a big fan of it because it can be subjective, but it's even more detrimental potentially for people with neurodivergent conditions. For example, and we've seen this happen in the workplace, when it comes to the end of year review, someone with autism, for example, or ADHD could be marked down on their behaviors. And examples given, for example, are you're not as chatty with the team, you don't come to social events, and they're subsequently marked down on their performance, and which in turn could potentially impact their annual salary review. That's a practice we don't want to see exist in the workplace. That needs to change. And that's one example of where reasonable adjustments need to be better understood by the employer. But also there's quick fixes like, many of the head office environments, especially call centers in head office, are very large, very bright, very loud. So what reasonable adjustments exist at the moment to help neurodivergent individuals cope with that working environment? So that's reasonable adjustments. And I think Steve will talk a bit more about that when he gives an overview of the training we're looking to roll out. And then to help with the campaign as well, yes, we've got the D&I working group within Aegis, but we need neurodiversity champions within the workplace. So even if you're not a rep and you want to be involved in this, then you're more than welcome to join our campaign, more than welcome to join our D&I working group. So if you are interested, then please contact myself or one of your local reps within your organization. That means we've just got like mental health first aiders, like anything else that's standard within the workplace. To have neurodiversity champions as well as a union just brings more knowledge, more experience, and more understanding to every colleague within the organization. So as I said, pushing for national policy change will be a big part of the end of this year, and lobbying for legislative change as well. And as I said, we'll update you more when that happens. And then towards the end of the campaign, we'll be looking to hold across all the union and all the workplaces National Awareness Day at head office. Of course, we understand that, especially at Yorkshire and Skipton, you've got the branches. So we're looking at how can we accommodate the branch network as well to be part of that campaign. But for me, it's not one day that we should be making awareness of this. It should be every day, but to have one particular day where we can bring experts in and make it a big event will again bring more heightened exposure and awareness to this. And then as well as all the work that we're doing internally, public campaigning is crucial to this as well. So we've got our social media campaigns, we've got what's going on our website, but also because we're as I said earlier, the only union that's focusing on this campaign, we're going to be invited to attend external events where we talk about our campaign, what it's like for people in the workplace, and then that will just bring us more knowledge from elsewhere to bring into our union and to our workplaces, but also raise the profile of Aegis and its members as well. And then also when we get to the end, we need to evaluate the progress of this campaign. As we all know from previous experience, it's great we recognise what we need to do as a union, but we need to ensure that if we set a strategy, if we set objectives, we have to achieve them. So at the end, we'll reach out to our members to say, did this campaign work? What were the positives and what areas could we have developed? But that's just not the end. Even from today, when we've spoken to you through these webinars or these meetings, please contact us at any time with your feedback. We've had feedback already from members in particular about how we publicize things, especially what font we use, what color we use in our font, because that can have an impact on neurodivergent individuals. So your advice and knowledge helps us as well, because we're learning every day about neurodiversity as well. And then this is not just a campaign for 1 year. This is just the start of building our foundations to ensure that this is part of our priority as a union in the long term moving forward, because things change all the time. So we need to make sure we've got the blueprint there, how we can support neurodivergent individuals, but what else can we do to improve it if needed in the future, and how can we adapt it in other areas of support for our members as well in the workplace. Another important part of this campaign was we recognise, and this is not just from what's happening with our own recognised work employers, but in society in general, and this is from personal experience. My son who's just turned 18, has autism, and like many young people, he wants to get a job, he wants to become more independent, but unfortunately the opportunities for young people with autism are very, very limited. And the main reason for this is employers are reluctant to offer opportunities for young people with neurodivergent conditions because they don't feel they can accommodate, they don't feel that they have the right roles. But slowly we're actually working with experts to show employers that actually no, this is not just good for you as an employer, this is great for young people. Once you get them in there, they bring value. People with neurodivergent conditions should not be seen as exceptions, they should be seen as valuable team players that can actually grow and add more value to the workplace. So I'm glad to say SBS, Skipton Building Society, are already looking at a project to work with local special needs schools to give work experience opportunities to young people. So that's a great start, but there's a lot more work to do with our employers and employers in general across the country. So that is a big key focus for us in this campaign as well. So just an overview of what we're doing. So as I said, the vital part of this is increased awareness and education about neurodiversity with our members and employers, improve the workplace for our neurodivergent members, making sure the right adjustments, the right policies are in place, and then establish a network of neurodiversity champions across our workplaces, and then influence national policies to make important national legislation changes for our members, and then strengthen relationships externally, work with other organizations to help with this campaign in the short and long term. So that's it from me. Before I move on to Steve, are there any questions or comments? Just seeing some comments on here. People dropping out. So Emma, you asked, do these contact centers have breakout rooms? I know some do, but I'm not sure all of them have. And I think in some examples, I know, and quite rightly, head offices have prayer rooms for people for religious reasons, but they're actually using these as breakout rooms as well. I don't feel that's sufficient. We should have more available workplace spaces, open spaces, quiet rooms for people, because it's needed a lot more. Let's have a look here further down. I'll bring everyone in, see their hands coming up now. Peter, you've got your hand up first there.
Yes, hello. That's really encouraging update on the campaign. Thank you. I hadn't heard about Skipton's program there, so where can I find out more about that, please?
So I take it you work at Skipton. Sorry, Peter. Yeah.
No, I actually work for Yorkshire Building Society,
okay.
But I'm just curious, so I've not heard about Skipton's program. Now, as a parent like yourself, a parent of an autistic child, I'm really interested to sort of hear about any opportunities like that.
Yeah, but so they're still in the early stages. They're just finalising it through North Yorkshire Council, because they have to get their buy-in for bringing people from the schools into the workplace.
Yeah.
But once it's actually been launched, as a union, we're more than happy to promote it, because it is a positive thing. So keep an eye out on our website. But I have to be realistic, and we know this ourselves, the full-time officers. Skipton will speak to Yorkshire at some point about this, but we have a role to play in it as well. So Steve, on behalf of Yorkshire, will meet with them and say, do you know Skipton are doing this? What would you guys be doing? So hopefully that will give them the impetus to do something very similar. But keep an eye out about how that campaign will look.
Which absolutely I can confirm, Peter. Absolutely in discussions as well.
Brilliant. Okay. So also, with my hat on, not just for my own son, but as a governor of a special school, I'd be really interested to know how we could get involved in that, but not necessarily to go through now, but just to follow up offline and understand at what point it would be appropriate to potentially.
Well, Peter, I'm a governor as well for a special needs school. So if you want to contact me separately, I'll give you more information about what I've been doing to get that school involved.
Brilliant. Thanks.
Thanks, Peter. Lucy.
Yeah, hi. Mine was more just a comment, really, because in Group Risks, as part of Skipton, we have like a people hub, and we've got a separate D&I subgroup, and it's really interesting to see what you're doing from a wider piece. We have linked in with like Shagufta from the internal piece to see what else is going on, but I'd definitely be interested in becoming like a colleague rep, because it's good to see, rather than doing it in silos, what we can do to contribute to the bigger piece. So it's really interesting to see all the stuff that you've got going on.
Thanks, Lucy. So yeah, just going back to that. So obviously I'm engaging with Shagufta all the time at Skipton, but we have linked into the D&I working group, and also there's a neurodiversity working group as well. So I've met with them, and the great thing is what we're trying to achieve is what they're trying to achieve. So it's crucial that we work together. And that's one thing we're trying to achieve through this campaign, is demonstrating that we can work with employers for the benefit of everyone. At the moment, there's a perception that you only see the union when there's a challenge going on, like pay negotiations, redundancy, negative things. We want to start promoting positive things as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we are working closely across all employers with the various groups. And Lucy, to get you on board, I'll be in touch.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
Emma.
Yeah, no, just interesting, because I'm Origin Financial Services, and I don't think there's anyone else on here from Origin, but no, my son's got ADHD and autism. He's 13, so I'm looking into some of those challenges you guys have got with your older well, you've got with your older child, Brian, so that's coming along the line for me. Yeah, I mean, I know we've just started a committee. I think it's Amy's thing, the ID committee. So there's definitely something going on at Origin about that. So I don't know if you've heard of that at all as yet. Amy Linfield?
I'm sure Ricky, Ricky Markham, or Brian Lynn would be aware of it, but I'll reach out to them and get them to get involved. I'm sure they already are. But yeah, as I said, any group that's set up, we have to be part of it.
Yeah. So I mean, they're doing that as well. So the only thing I'd say is that you asked for greater kind of reach, and we get a monthly newsletter broadcast, and that's for the whole of Origin and the whole of Aegon. And I think that might be a really good thing to, promote this.
Yeah.
So just suggest you speak to, I mean, I think it's probably Tim Orton. I doubt he does all of it. He's obviously quite busy, but maybe sort of, that's a monthly broadcast, and that would really highlight this, which I think is really important. And I'm only in the PTA. I'm not a governor, like you guys. But the schools are very interesting because my son is at a mainstream school, but all teachers are considered to be special needs teachers because they will have people with special needs in their class environment. And I think that's the mindset that employers need to get into, is they will have it within their population and within their potential candidates for recruitment as well. So it's just an awareness, isn't it? And anything that raises awareness is great. So thank you for what you're doing. Really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate that feedback. And also, this isn't just about the neurodivergent members that we have, employees. It's about the family, the parents, the carers of people as well, because those of you been in that situation, we know how difficult it can be and challenging. So to get the support from your employer helps in the long term as well. So we need to push for that also. But as I said, any group that comes up, we will be involved. And going back to that point about what's happening in schools, overall, we do know there's been so many cuts over the last 15 years to support needs for special needs. We're going to see more challenges along the way. So if we can bring some more, ease into the workplace, then hopefully that will help a little bit. But there's a lot more to do, and that's why I touched upon legislation changes, putting things to the government as well, because we have a responsibility as a union to do that as well. Well, enough talking from me. I'm going to hand over to my esteemed colleague Steve to talk more about the training that we're looking to roll out.
Thank you, everyone. So we acknowledged as part of the initial stages of this campaign, leaders do not have adequate training at the moment in order to best support colleagues who are neurodivergent. So what we are doing is absolutely not an attack on leaders in organisations. What we want to do is create an environment where leaders feel comfortable coming to us for support and guidance. We will always support the fact that if a leader is reaching out and they're getting guidance from us, that's going to mean it's a better experience for the member of staff they're supporting. So we're all on board with encouraging leaders to come and speak to us. And on that basis, we've developed some training. So it's important to say this training hasn't just come from us in Aegis. We've sought guidance from experienced neurodivergent specialists. I myself went on some training with a brilliant person who I'll be happy to share the details of in January as part of this training, and the rest of the full-time officers will be going on that training shortly. That training will initially be rolled out to all of our reps across all of our divisions, but we have had discussions and got general support for this to be rolled out to all leaders across all divisions as well. So in all of our places where we represent members, we will be happy to roll that training out to every leader that wants to come to that training. And again, it's about creating awareness and creating knowledge. So I won't go through the training now, but there's one element of it that I wanted to touch on in this meeting. That being the difference between the medical model and the social model when it comes to supporting an individual. And it's fair to say that's whether they are neurodivergent or not, but we'll link it to neurodivergency in this instance. So most businesses will prescribe to the medical model when it comes to looking at somebody. So I will read you a statement where I've used myself as the example for what the medical model prescribes in terms of what you look at when you're a colleague comes to you with an issue. So the medical model would state that Steve's autism makes him hypersensitive to bright lights, so he can't work in our office. Now let me read you the social model. The social model would state the bright lights in our office make Steve distressed as he is autistic and unusually sensitive to light. He can work here if we turn them down. So that simple definition and the simple differences between them, the medical model creates a barrier why somebody cannot work. The social model removes the barrier so that somebody can work. And little things like that, along with obviously some of the details we'll go through in that training, that's the way we want to get leaders thinking. We also want to encourage them to be pushing and challenging for better. So as an example, if you've got a colleague and absolutely you've got policies, and we respect that policies need to be followed, but if you've got something for that colleague that falls outside of a policy, but you as a leader think that is the best thing for my colleague, try it. Or at the very least, ask if you can try it. That is the way that successful change is made, because what that thing might be that you try with that colleague might work really well. And then the business as a wider function might go, wow, that worked really well. Why don't we have that as the norm for treating colleagues? This is how changes get made. So that's the encouragement we will be giving to leaders. Brian touched on reasonable adjustments earlier. There's so much more that businesses can and more importantly need to be doing when it comes to reasonable adjustments. One of the areas that I can touch on now is in terms of recruitment process. If you are autistic or if you have ADHD and you are going into an interview and you do not see those questions before going into that interview, chances are you will not give a good interview because those questions are being sprung on you. You have not had time to prepare. Similarly, if you are in that interview and you're being given a hypothetical question, people with autism can suffer with that because they can't put themselves in a hypothetical scenario. Quite literally had an example from somebody who said, I have no idea. That's not happened to me. Whereas if you say to them, can you support a real example of when you have done this, they will naturally be given a much better answer. But it can go further than that. You could look at, for a recruitment process, having a number of different methods for how people can choose to apply. So you could say as an organisation, you can go through an interview, you can deliver a presentation from us, you can show some skills-based work and show your competency in that way, creating other avenues for people to be able to successfully apply. Looking at things like dyslexia and dyspraxia, are all training materials suitable for those individuals? And I would say in the majority of divisions, the answer to that is no. So there is a lot of work that needs to be done. And it's really important to say as well, because we appreciate businesses are businesses, every study that you want to look at shows that if these measures are put in place and workplaces are as good as they can be for all individuals, you will reduce your absence, you will create productive and more happier employees. And the benefits of these changes, whilst we are absolutely focused on people who are neurodivergent, creating these better ways of working will create a better environment for neurotypical employees as well. So if you are improving these policies and improving these systems, you are making a better workplace environment for everybody. And that's something that, again, we want to push all businesses to be behind that message.
Brilliant. Thanks, Steve. Is there any questions for Steve? No? Just going back to what else we're pushing through for this campaign, what have we learned that needs to change? And one thing I'm sure those who have been through the process have heard about the process to get a diagnosis can take years. And again, we'll go back to various reasons as to why that's happened, because of the pressures of on the NHS, because of cuts, etc. But what can we do to make that process easier? Because we've seen examples in the past where a member would come to us say, I've not had my diagnosis yet, but I need reasonable adjustments. I need the employer to help me create an environment that I can work with them. But the employer will say, well, you've not had the diagnosis, we can't do anything. You don't fall under the Equality Act of 2010. So what can we do to help that? Well, there's two parts. One is, can we fix the diagnosis process itself? We can't at the moment, just ourselves as ageist in the workplace, because it's a National Health Service situation. But some of the employers that we have here today have private healthcare. And what we're pushing for, and with all employers, and started the conversation, is can you bring that diagnosis process into the policy for our members so it can be quicker? There's been some positive movement already with some of the employers, but at the moment we're still in discussions around that. But that's one way we can fix it. Personally, I don't want to help the private healthcare sector. I want to help the NHS, but our members are a priority, and to help them as much as possible would be a positive. But then what else can be done in the meantime? Well, yes, a lot of our leaders, a lot of employers look at the black and white of a policy, but you can work around it. You can look at individuals. You can see people for who they are. As Steve mentioned earlier, look at ask the question, can I do this? This shouldn't be a no, it should be let's try. So even though you're not getting a diagnosis or you're going through that process, duty of care, good working practices are something that should exist in a good employer. So that's something we as a union will push with the senior people in the organisation, but we know how difficult it is for those going through that process. So there's a lot of things going on in the background with discussions to help. Oh, what's that? Beth's jumped in there. The right to choose pathway, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a great way of helping. But I think overall, we need to have a better process for diagnosis, because that conveyor belt of people looking for it is growing considerably. We need to have accommodation for helping those that need to get through it. So that's where we are with the campaign. Is there any other questions or comments? I think the question for me is, at the moment, do you feel your workplace is doing the right things? Does it create a working environment that does benefit neurodivergent individuals, or do you feel there's a lot more work to be done?
I personally just think that, well, in my department anyway, where I work, that the leaders don't really understand anything to do with like neurodiversity. Like, just as an example, like if you were to say, oh, I've got autism, in their mind they might just think that, oh well, my friend's son's got autism and he can't talk. But not everyone's like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's a really good point, Beth, and I think that goes back to that part about education awareness. But also we have to remember, leaders, it's not their fault. They've not probably had the right training or support within their organization, because I've been a leader in one of the organizations before, and your focus is always a priority is get the work done, get this done. Oh yeah, people management becomes secondary. We want to try and change that culture, say people management is crucial in the workplace. Yes, you have a role to play, you have skills about the role itself, but what about the people in your team? And again, it's a really good point, Beth. Someone might have a perception about autism. I've heard it before from a leader going, oh, is that the Rain Man situation? And it's like, that demonstrates a lot more work has to be done, because each individual with a neurodivergent condition is different. And the other thing as well, and I've asked my son this question before. I says, if there was a cure for autism, would you take it? And he goes, no, why should I? Because I am who I am. And that's what we need to develop as a perception and a culture within all workplaces and society in general, that they're a valuable part of our society. They're not someone you put away at the side. They should be ingrained as part of our society. They should be valued, and they should be appreciated as well for what they bring to the table.
And again, for reference, and I'm aware we've got, a receiving audience here, but Brian touched on, wider political campaigning as well. Because one of the questions we had in one of the other groups, which is a fair question, is, well, will these businesses even go ahead with this? I think, it's fair to say, as far as businesses go, we've got receptive and open businesses to these discussions, and generally that's a good place to start. But businesses are businesses, and why you need that wider political campaigning is, if we look back to when, there was initial talks about people being allowed to work from home, and at first businesses said, well, nobody can work from home, we need them in the office. That changed. Then we look at flexible working, where businesses said, well, nobody can work flexibly, we need them in the office at these exact times and these exact hours. That changed. And whilst neurodivergency isn't a new issue, the focus on it has ever increased. over the course of the last few years, and it will be constantly changing and constantly growing. So to Brian's point as well, this isn't just a campaign for 12 months. This is something that we and all unions will need to keep on top of.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, and this is why, you know, we're working very closely with the TUC, with the regional TUCs as well. We, you know, because the majority of our members sit in Yorkshire and Humber, so we're part of that. We sit on the region, the executive for that region. So all the unions there are joining up with this campaign. So I think that's really good because it creates some more awareness about this topic. If there's no more questions, I'll give you a bit more information about future campaigns. So before I move on, is there any other comment? No. Well, what I'll say in conclusion then, this is, you know, as I said, this is the start of a campaign. This is going to be around, you know, as long as we're as a union. But one thing it's key is everything we do as a union is driven by membership. So, you know, we can sit at the top table and go, right, should we do this or should we do that? That's not the way we operate. We listen to what's happening on the ground level. That comes up through our reps. That comes up through the committees in each branch. And then we'll sit and go, right, this needs to be addressed. So the only way we can make that real is by you guys becoming involved. So if you want to be part, as I said earlier, part of the working group, if you want to give us a personal story or be, you know, anything, share on social media our campaign, please do. It just makes a big difference and it brings strength to our union. And the other thing that brings strength to our union is more members. So you probably are aware that we do have incentives. So if you know colleagues who aren't members and you sign them up, they'll be part of the bigger voice of this when we go into the exec room and sort of, you know, have these discussions. We'll say, here's all our members wanting this campaign to work, but also you'll get a £10 voucher as well. So if you want to recruit people, you can recruit as many, you'll get a £10 voucher. But for campaigns like this and any other campaign we do in the future, the bigger we are, the more voices we have, the louder our campaigns will be. Other campaigns we're looking at then. So next year, we're already oh, sorry, Emma, you got your hand up.
It's all right. How do you want those stories, if we've got personal stories, how do you want us to get those to you, preferably?
If you send them, either contact one of your local reps or
Okay.
there's the members at agencyunion.co.uk mailbox email address. Send it through that, and then it will go through to the right channels.
Brilliant. Thank you.
But we'll send a comms out with the recordings of the sessions as well, highlighting to people how they can do it. That'd be great. Thanks, Emma. As I said, the other campaign we're looking at, and one that is, because a lot of the campaigns we want to do are not just specific to our finance sector, and you know, they're specific to everyone. But the one that we are looking at that is going to hit our sector next year is about AI. So we're already talking to our employers about the impact of AI, and the rhetoric at the moment we're getting from is, yeah, AI is going to it's going to enhance the workplace, it's going to enhance people's roles. We've got a different view on it, speaking to specialists outside of the workplace. It is going to potentially have detriment on our members, so we have to be ready for that. So that's our next campaign in 2026, but we are looking at it already. And the other thing, going back to diversity inclusion, is that, sorry, Emma, just checking your comment there. Do you think it's not going to wait till next year? Or wait.
Why didn't they transcript all these meetings, and what do you think they're doing with the transcripts? In my industry, I know what they're doing with them.
Yeah.
Well, they're going
yeah,
to do
exactly. So as I said, we're looking at it already, but we'll make it an official public campaign next year. But the other thing as well, going back to diversity inclusion, is I've already had people from the employers that I speak to, senior people who deal with D&I, saying engagement in D&I is decreasing across the workplace. And, you know, when I speak to them and say, what is the root cause of this? We have to be realistic. It's the rise of reform. And what's happening in the local elections when reformers saying they want to get rid of D&I in the councils, this is having an impact in the workplaces. So we're looking at another campaign very soon that's going to be focusing on how do we avoid division in the workplace and look at continue to try and unite people in the workplace. We're not going to get political, that's not what we do, but we have to recognize it is having an impact in our recognized workplaces. We're seeing cases increase of alleged discrimination, either sex, race, or disability. There is something driving that. So we have a responsibility as a union to address it, working with other unions, because at the end of the day, if our workplace is impacted, we have to act proactively as best we can to address it. So that's another campaign we'll be talking to our members about as well. We've even been asked by employers to come in and speak to in the workplace, do workshops, which is a first for me. I've never had any employer say, can you come in and help us? To have that from one employer or a couple of employers demonstrates how crucial and needy this is. So that's another campaign. But as I said earlier, if there's anything you think we've missed or anything you want us to focus on, please let us know. We are a small union, but we do have a lot of support externally. We are growing. We are deemed, and this is a reputation, this isn't us being egotistical. We do have a reputation externally that we are a progressive union. Our ambition is to be the biggest in the finance sector, but obviously our priority is our members that we already have, but we do want to grow. But how we achieve that is by focusing on the campaigns that affect our members, their families, and the communities that they live within. So that's it from me. Do you have any other questions or comments? No? If you think of anything after, please get in touch. And as I said, thanks, Emma. I'll get Ricky to give you a shout. If there's anyone else or any other questions that you have, please reach out. But also we'll do more webinars. There'll be more communications about this campaign, but also not just neurodiversity, but what else we're doing within our recognised workplaces. There'll be a lot more visibility. So please feed back to us at any point. Even if it is critical, we can take that because it helps us develop. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy 11 minutes of the sunshine if you have it. And I'll speak to you all soon.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank you
Bye.
very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.